Yeah, it looks so assured, that PowerPoint, doesn't it? And I'm sitting there feeling quite nervous and looking at that and thinking, it's almost like paternal and avuncular and almost a little bit arrogant to suggest that I'm going to discuss ideas that will help us or you to make the world, to see the world more clearly. I want to get a cliche out of the way quite quickly, and that is that we live in complex and exponential times. I hope that I don't actually use many more cliches like that, but we do though, don't we? And I know that for a fact because I've been living abroad for a very long time, and I came back, and before I left the UK, we bought a ticket to a train, we got your destination sorted, and there was no hassle at all. But now, because I've got family in Brighton, I come down there. There's a company called Thameslink, there's a company called Southern. And sometimes you get a train with one ticket and a guard will say, oh, no, I didn't speak to you, it's fine, just carry on. And other times you get a guard who goes, no, you're going to have to either get off or you're going to have to pay another ticket. And guys, it's complex. I'm going to ask some rhetorical questions to set the scene before I go on to what I'm trying to achieve through this. And, you know, the BBC, 5 years ago, commissioned a study to try and look at whether the class system in the UK still existed. It came up with the findings that there are now 8 different classes, not 3. And below the working class, there's the precariat, which someone called Guy Standing has written a book about. Even the class system is sort of like, you know, become more complex. It's become more diverse, and there's more class structures. Does class exist? Aung San Suu Kyi, you know, at one time, for a long time, was a paragon of political and moral virtue. And now she seems to be a sort of conspirator, as a bystander to genocide and ethnic cleansing. We have a situation where meat lamb, which actually takes up 0.4% of our diet in the UK, actually takes up the same land mass as all the other land in the UK, which produces all our other food. How does that come about? What about race? Race seems to be a big issue, particularly in the States at the moment. Why is it that science tells us increasingly that race doesn't exist, that there are peoples, there are clans, there are adjacent communities in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in the Kalahari Desert area, and their DNA is so different from clan to clan, so different that it differs from the whole of that community and people that live in Europe, and yet we still persist with debates about race. We still think that race is a thing. Going back to food again, what happens when you buy your food? You buy, say, meat, for instance, and you think, well, no, I'm going to buy free-range organic beef, or I'm going to buy free-range eggs. But there again, in terms of animal welfare, that's really good, isn't it? But in terms of land use and the diminishing of sort of natural habitat and environmental biodiversity, it's a bad thing. So how do you manage those conflicting criteria? Forgive me if I look at my notes this first bit. The gun issue in the US, you know. How do you balance the idea between the need for collective security and also the need for individual freedom, liberty? How is it that liberals are now calling for intervention from the state? Neoliberalism and meritocracy. You go into any airport lounge and you see books about rags to riches stories. Everyone achieved everything, or anything rather. But really, we know that the class system which kind of overrides that and runs in the face of it. Okay, Tim, I forgot to ask you for the
here, there.
Clicker.
There you go.
Okay, cool. How does that work? It?
Just press any button on it.
Okay,
there
cool. So where am I going with this? I've worked in education for 30 years, and more specifically, I've seen times when I worked in Hong Kong, and the umbrella revolution was unfolding just at the gates of the school building, and our students were not involved. I've also seen situations, and I've just remembered 2 things I wanted to mention. We live in a situation, you mentioned Brexit before, where, you know, in terms of national self-harm, it's rather like the country's just slit its wrists and is now laying back in a bath of warm water. How is the democratic process, which we've always held dear in the West, how is that failing us now? There's a guy called John Dewey, who is a really big educational reformer and thinker, And he said that in each generation, democracy is reborn. And with that rebirth, education is the midwife. Is education fulfilling that function at the moment? I would argue that it isn't. So, what's my passion? My passion is education. It really is. But I also, kind of in an inverted way, have a passion for the fact that education is failing us. And it's really crucial that we get it right. But I promise not to talk about schools all evening. So this book, anyone heard of Edge website? John Brockman. I don't know much about him. I didn't have the wherewithal to do much research about him, but I like the website. The website Edge, it kind of personifies the idea of bringing the human thinking, the edge of human thinking, to one point. And there's a website, wonderful website, I would urge you to check it out. And they have an annual question. And about 5 years ago, I stumbled on this book, and again, it's packaged by, I would say, cynical publishers, and you would, like I did at first, walk past that book cover. This will make you smarter, but it's a wonderful book. The question at that time, not the question that's up there about the internet, was what cognitive tool would improve your mental toolkit? And what John Brockman did is he brings people from different domains together, asks them that question, and they provide a very short chapter on what they think would be a really good tool to improve people's ways of thinking. Having been in education for 30 years, like some of you perhaps, I've seen that facts are not good enough anymore. That the idea of skills, building students' skills, doesn't kind of work. It's okay, it's laudable. The work of Lynn Erickson about concepts that transverse domains and times, like geographically specific, are really, really useful. But I kind of started to think that this book had something going for it, and I think that what I've done basically is amassed about 25, 30 ideas that I think it would be useful for young people to know about, and probably not just young people, but everyone. How did the ideas qualify? Well, I once saw a comic, and he had cerebral palsy, and pronounced cerebral palsy symptoms. And as he walked onto the stage, the first thing he did, he had 2 crutches, was throw the crutches on the floor and stand there and say, "Look at them, they're useless now." And I hope that the ideas, the ideas I've chosen are dynamic. They don't exist, they have no life without application. They're not domain specific. The 2 ideas I've chosen to discuss tonight are domain specific. They come from particular domains of economics and business, but I'm going to argue that they're applicable and useful to people across domains, and also they're scalable, so they work in your private life, your personal life, and they work on a global level too. Uncontested, they don't serve anyone's purpose either, so I would like to argue that the ideas we're going to talk about, you can't say no, that doesn't exist, it doesn't happen, and neither do they actually support, they're not partial. They're not open to negotiation about this serves this group's purpose. And also, they really matter. Okay, 2 ideas. The cobra effect, path dependence. These are 2 that are probably the simplest to deal with in 15 minutes. Say there are about 25, 30 others. Cobra effect. Has anyone heard of this before? Even though I'm arguing that they're good, they do help you to make the world clearer. I also kind of like them because I had a sort of an epiphany when I first heard about the cobra effect, and they kind of work in themselves. They're complete. They've got sort of symmetry to them. Barbara Streisand. Leave your notes again. Okay. Just. This is wonderful. So there's a photograph of Barbara Streisand's Malibu Beach home. Where are we? Oh yeah, so in 2003, she was so alarmed, Barbara Streisand, that someone at Pictopia.com, someone called Kenneth Alderman, has uploaded this photograph, that she filed a lawsuit to have it taken down. And basically, before the lawsuit, I think 6 people downloaded the image. After the lawsuit, 420,000 people downloaded the image. I find that wonderful. I need to go backwards because I just realised I didn't talk about the cobra effect. Sorry, a bit nervous. Back in the UK's glorious past, during the Raj, a governor in the province of Delhi in India decided that he was too alarmed about the incidence of snake bites, cobra bites more specifically. So what he did, he offered a reward. He said, for every cobra skin that you bring to the office, we'll give you a certain amount of rupees in reward. And this worked quite well for a number of months. And then some of the community, the immediate community, being entrepreneurially minded, started cobra farms. Wonderful idea. So they just started farming cobras, breeding cobras, and beautifully taking the skins in and reaping their reward. And of course, word got out, and the governor found out about it and stopped the reward. So what did the farmers do? They let the cobras go. And what happened to the frequency of cobra bites? They went up. They went up. And I think that's wonderful. So it's almost like be careful what you wish for. In the 19th century, there's a group of paleontologists going to China, and they offer a yuan, RMB, whatever it was then, reward for every fragment of fossil that was found. So what happens? The locals who have been co-opted to help with this endeavour chop up, break up every huge fossil they find into very, very small parts to get the money back, to get more money. So again, the cobra effect is about trying to solve one problem, trying to get a desired result, and actually getting the opposite. Mao, in the Great Leap Forward, which I think in itself, the Great Leap Forward is an example of the cobra effect, because it obviously resulted in tens of millions of people starving to death. But there was between 1958 and 1962, there was the Four Pests campaign. You probably know about this. And the people of China were charged with the mission of, you can see from the top left there, of killing as many mosquitoes, flies, rats, and Eurasian tree sparrows as possible. The argument about the sparrow was that the sparrow was eating the seeds, the rice seeds. And of course, wonderful idea. Let's just co-opt the whole of the population to wipe out these four, negative influences, as it were. The bad thing was that not only were the Eurasian tree sparrows eating the seeds of the rice harvest, but they were also eating the larval forms of lots of insects that were feeding on the rice as well. And so what happened was that particularly with locusts, is that 2 or 3 years later, when the Eurasian tree sparrow was almost driven to extinction, was that there were plagues of locusts, and the rice harvest was failing. Another example. Elizabeth, do you know about the history of monopoly? Elizabeth Menger, who was born in, I think, 1866, under the influence of her father, she was given a book by someone who I'm not going to go to my notes to reveal, but it was about the insidious nature of land ownership. She believed that land ownership was inherently wrong. She believed in the idea that landowners should be taxed for their ownership of land. So she produced this idea of a game called Monopoly. It wasn't called Monopoly, she called it the landlord's game. And she had 2 sets of rules. One was called the prosperity rules, and basically that was the rules that it would take into account land tax. So every time someone bought something, someone put money into a central kitty, and the assembled players would have to try and figure out how that collectively owned money would be spent for the common good. And then there were another set of rules called the monopolist rules, which are the ones that we're familiar with. And she designed the game to try and sort of like show just how bad the current system was, how bad capitalism was. But unfortunately, it was produced on a very small scale and was lauded amongst the left wing in America, but it got taken up by Parker Brothers, and they became millionaires, and they discarded the prosperity rules and just pushed it as being about how to prosper at everyone else's demise, as it were. Which made me think about Harry Enfield, loads of money. Harry Enfield developed this character as a sort of like indictment of Thatcher's children, as it were, and the idea that people were, in a deregulated environment were able to make lots of money through small businesses. But I can remember being a teacher on the South Coast around the time this character was on the TV. And it came back to bite me a little bit, because there was one scene you may remember where he Harry Enfield is calling teachers, and there's a bit of a preamble to this, but he eventually says, you know, teachers, you earn no money, you're wankers, you know. And I had actually kids actually quoting Harry Enfield. They were proud of this moniker, they were proud of the loads of money, and it kind of had the opposite effect. Another example, great example, the cobra effect. There was a study done in Haifa of 10-day schools, and they were just fed up. They were fed up with people, parents turning up late. You know what it's like, you've got your job of work, you have to go pick your kids up from the daycare centre or nursery. And there's a guy called Yuri Nizi, professor of economics at University College San Diego, who co-authored this study in Haifa. They looked at 10-day schools. And what they were fed up, these day schools were, they were fed up with people turning up late. And so what they did, they introduced a fine. Any parent who turned up late would incur a fine. And it's quite interesting because Yuri himself, having co-authored this study, was actually a parent, and he suffered a fine one day. He drove at breakneck speed, trying very hard to pick his kids up on time, and got there and incurred a $3 or equivalent of a $3, $5 fine. And the next day he said he was in traffic, and he thought, what the heck, it's not worth risking my life to drive fast just for $3 or $4, I'll just pay the money. And what they found in all the 10-day schools that took part in the study was that where they introduced a fine system to try and disincentivise parents being late, the rate of lateness went up 50% in all of the day schools. So you can see that, you know, I presume the parents were thinking, well, you know, this is a great deal. We can get childcare at a small daily rate. And this is the real problem with sort of monetarising everything. I don't know how many of you have read Michael Sanders' book, What Money Can't Buy, but I'll mention that a bit later on, but it's wonderful about this. And again, another example of the cobra effect. So anyway, before we go on to recycling, as a deputy principal, vice principal of an international school in Hong Kong, we kind of took this to heart a little bit. We had it in our mission statement, and I'll come back to that a bit later on. The idea that, you know, we take responsibility for our teaching and learning, but then we realised that we weren't taking real responsibility. We were like 6,000 miles away from the people that provided our spec for our GCSE exams. And they in turn were owned by Pearson's, who were a profit-making organisation. And we, as a result of that, I'm trying to just say how you can apply, how we applied the cobra effect to sort of some use. We decided that we would cut right back on GCSEs and just ask teachers to teach what they wanted to teach. We really did take responsibility for our teaching and learning. Having said that, I'm going to move on. Recycling. Recycling is good, right? It's good for the biosphere. We produce single-use plastic products, we need to recycle them. And the aim of recycling is to limit the damage to the biosphere. I would argue that having the cobra effect on board and kind of knowing what I know that recycling is bad. Because what it does is, a bit like the Haifa day school study, a bit like the other examples of the cobra effect, it actually legitimises the buying of single-use products. These things shouldn't be in our biosphere. It just shouldn't be there. So recycling is, I would say, is an example of the cobra effect. Don't do it. If it needs recycling, it's wrong. I have a friend in Hong Kong, and she started an app, and you can see some screenshots of it there, where you use a GPS, wherever you are in Hong Kong, it will tell you where you can refill your water bottle. Not your plastic water bottle, but your permanent water bottle. And it seems crazy to me that we think that recycling is doing the job, but if you're thirsty, you're walking down King's Road or London Road in St Leonard's, you're thirsty, it's a June day, it's a really hot day, the one hot day we have, and you're really, really thirsty, and you've got no money, what do you do first? Cash point. Every convenience store has a cash point. Where can you go and fill your water bottle at? Ridiculous. You have to go and get some cash out, and there are cash machines everywhere, and you need to go and buy a bottle of water. It's crazy. How do I know it's crazy? Cap and trade. Cap and trade is ridiculous. These guys are really genius. Unfortunately, the site cheapneutral.com has now been taken up by a bacon company, as it happens. Cheapneutral.com is a great website, was a great website. How does it work? Basically, if you want to be unfaithful to your partner, it's okay. You can go onto cheatyoutube.com and you can pay someone in the north of the country, the west of the country, to stay faithful to theirs. I would say the cap and trade, any offsetting, is an example of the cobra effect. It's a great website, it's a great idea. Personal experiences. Just going to take the time.
Yeah, Gareth, about 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, quickly. So a friend of mine came to a consignment of lots and lots of shoes in Hong Kong, and we had a very long and embedded relationship with a very rural and disadvantaged village in China. And he thought, we got 200 pairs of shoes and took them up there. And basically, one foul swoop, put the local cobra out of business. Good intentions, cobra effect again. Use that one. And sadly, the volunteerism dollar is really big right now, so there's a lot of people that want to go to Cambodia and do good, and people in Cambodia have cottoned onto that. So you want to go to Cambodia, you want to work in an orphanage. Sadly, you might be working to support and fund an orphanage which didn't exist before the volunteerism dollar existed. There are cynical people in Cambodia who go up to rural and very disadvantaged and poor places in Cambodia, prize children out of very poor conditions with the promise that they'll be looked after and educated in Phnom Penh, Siem Reap. They're undernourished, dressed very badly, and these people cream the money off big time. So again, good intentions, we go in, we think we're doing good, and we're not, having the opposite effect. Okay, so I think I've run my course. The other idea was going to be about path dependence. Have we got a couple of minutes to talk about path dependence?
Yeah, about a minute. Yeah, go
okay,
on.
One minute. So path dependence again comes from economics, business. It's hard to interpret. It's hard to understand what path dependence is. Basically, path dependence, if you look at the QWERTY keyboard was developed to stop the arms of a typewriter from jamming. And even though we don't have arms, we don't have on typewriters, we don't have typewriters anymore, we still have the QWERTY keyboard. So path dependence is an incredible idea, which is about where we persist in doing things, we persist in organising our lives, we persist in behaviours which the conditions that gave rise to them have completely disappeared. Okay, that's fine.
Fabulous, thanks ever so much, Gareth. Cobra effect and path dependence. I knew nothing about the cobra effect, but I think it's a very, very fascinating point about the recycling tools. It's a no-brainer, effectively, but we should stop using those products. Is the answer? Does anybody have any questions for Gareth? Yes, over here.
I might have misread the words on the first and second slide, but is it possible for an idea to be uncontested?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, no, I think it's the holy grail. It's something, like so many criteria, specifications for things, it's hard to meet, and certainly some of the other 25 that I've aggregated are less impartial. But yeah, of course, one of the chapters in this book I'm starting to write is about all language judges. So the words you use, judges, and I think. More than some of the ideas I've read, I think I've been dutiful in trying to make sure that they're not contested. But I think you're right. I mean, there's no such thing really. It's a stretch target. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting, I found. I'm interested in most of the things are really the main causes of our problems today, and the cobra effect is a good example of that. However, we need to focus on solutions. So is there a sort of mongoose effect, or some way of killing the snakes?
Yeah, Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think the problem with the cobra effect is that what happens is you have emergent, be it structures, behaviours, habits, phenomenon, and they emerge because of the interrelation of loads of causal chains, the interaction of loads of variables. And the mistake we make is to not understand that complexity. We think that there's a panacea idea that will just take it away. And so I think there isn't an answer. And seriously, all those horrendous things I talked about at the beginning of the talk are not going to be solved by people understanding a set of 24 ideas. I think it's going to be a partial solution. There isn't, no, but I think understanding complexity, understanding causal chains. I'm a big fan of George Monbiot, and if you've read anything, he says he's great at charting causal chains, complex causal chains, and not just thinking, this is, the fact that I can't get a job is due to immigration, or the fact that, the rice yield is failing is because of these birds. It's very, very complex. I think complexity theory in itself is quite complicated, but understanding the interrelation, causal chains, that would be my thing. And I think, again, it comes down to education. I think students aren't prepared, and I was going to go on to talk about that in a bit more detail, but misjudged the time.
Any more questions?
Yes, over here.
Sorry, it's just too tantalising. Could you just quickly run through why we've got the ladder, banana, water and...
Okay. So, path dependence, as I said, is about the fact that we persist doing things. Like Michael Gove just went on record 2 weeks ago in Telegraph saying, look, the half-time holiday used to be called the tatty holiday when I was a kid, and we used to all go and help pick potatoes, but we still persist with the half-time holiday. We still persist with the QWERTY keyboard. So, the monkey, the ladder, the water, the bananas. It's apocryphal, but I put it up because it's sort of like, it explains the concept really well. There was a guy called, give me 1 second. I can't find it. Gareth Stevens, 1967, he did a study called Cultural Acquisition of a Specific Learned Response Among Rhesus Monkeys. He put 5 monkeys in a cage with a stepladder and hung some bananas from the ceiling. Every time a single monkey went up to try and retrieve the banana, he sprayed that monkey and all the rest with cold water. And then, of course, what happened was that as any monkey went up there, the others would attack the monkeys. They didn't want to be sprayed with cold water. But then he replaced each monkey bit by bit until there was a completely new set of monkeys there. And he eventually took the bananas down and stopped spraying the cold water on the monkeys. But every time a monkey went up the ladder, they still got bitten and scratched and attacked. And I think that kind of just explains the idea of path dependence really, really well. And I think, I was going to end by saying, if I had more time, that, look around you. Certainly, in schools, particularly where I've spent most of my professional life, most of the things we do are just path dependent. The circumstances that gave rise to those behaviours, those structures, those systems, just don't exist anymore. They don't exist. And that might be okay. It might be okay. I'm not saying that all path dependent behaviours and structures are bad, but just to ask ourselves, which do we need to change? I don't trust Michael Gove and his motivations about questioning the school holidays structures, but it might be time to reassess those.
Time for,
Isn't the thing that you're kicking against mainly reductionism? That is, you're nodding. That is the curse of modern thinking. Yeah, you answered it. Great.
Can you just explain, and then we'll round up?
Well, I think that question brings path dependence and the cobra effect together. Really, is I think if you look at reductionism, we're path dependent on certain thinking. Say, for instance, in political realm, between left and right. I mean, I would argue there's no such really thing as left and right anymore, but people still think in that way. People like Christopher Hitchens, and I'm sure you know, and back in the day, he was easily compartmentalised as in the sort of box, which was, had the label radical left, you know, but then he came out and supported the Iraq wars. You know, there's loads of examples in that sort of like that old polarity where it was we were neatly able to compartmentalise in a reductive way. And what's happening now is this push against reductionism because things are too complex, you know. I don't know if you've seen Adam Curtis's film Hypernormalisation, but the idea of politics, the whole political landscape has changed, and yet we still apply the same old language and this notion of left and right, of working class and establishment, and yet, you know, he would argue that one of the big things now is about perception management, and you know, I think we've got a real duty, you know, as an induction, as a rite of passage, to get students, young people, to be able to disentangle what's opinion, what's, you know, fake news, and what's true, you know.
Right, I'm going to stop there. Thank you
So much, Gareth.